took on, because we've seen other media companies, tech companies have this dual class stock. Yeah, so that would be very prominent in the document. It would be mentioned on the cover of the document likely. That would be something that would be not unexpected in this situation, especially when you have an IPO which is going to be is going to be very hotly sought by investors. You tend to find that founders of tech companies that are large and fast growing do have the ability to dictate such terms, and that's been my experience. It's not uncommon. It's not something that corporate governance purists love, because it means that if things go wrong, investors may not get to have a huge say in any changes that they would like to see. But it's not surprising that that's something that would happen, and for Elon Musk, it might allow him to consolidate somewhat. Just looking at Tesla, DES screen for Tesla does not have a dual class.
Yeah, so maybe he learned from the first time, and of course it's not unusual for founders to launch an IPO like this. Meta has this dual class structure as well, and it's fittingly that we're getting this confidential IPO on the day that NASA is set to launch astronauts to the moon for the first time in 50 years. Anthony, one thing that we do know about SpaceX is that it acquired XAI, which is Elon Musk's AI startup, earlier this year. What does that have to do with this IPO? Why was that kind of a necessary step towards this IPO?
Well, I think people have different theories on that. I think it probably makes sense for the funding needs of their business to bring it into SpaceX. I think some people felt that that wasn't great for it's made the business not as attractive as a whole. But at the end of the day, I think people are backing Elon Musk because of his track record. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Tesla. I mean, it's just been extraordinary that if we go back to 2010 when Tesla went public, it was a unveiling of the document will allow SpaceX to say lots of things to investors that they wouldn't otherwise be able to say. That's our understanding of the legal position there. And so, it's really, they'll be doing a lot of testing with all these meetings. Well, the meetings is supposedly starting next week. And so, it's really full steam ahead.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that. We're checking it out.
Just the numbers involved are so massive. The listing could raise as much as $75 billion. SpaceX would seek a valuation in the IPO of more than $1.75 trillion.
Yep. Yeah, trillion with a T, absolutely. So
Remarkable.
crazy.
Anthony Hughes, thank you so much. Anthony Hughes is our equity capital markets reporter here in the U.S. On SpaceX filing confidentially, according to Bloomberg reporting, for an IPO ahead of its rivals OpenAI and Anthropic. More coming up on Bloomberg Intelligence right here on Bloomberg Radio. Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 99.1.
Clouds that we headed our way, as will some showers, thunderstorms. Some of the thunderstorms can produce gusty winds and heavy downpours, 85 to 90 in the District of Baltimore. Showers and maybe a thunderstorm tonight were 60 to 65. Showers and thunderstorms, well, they're possible late tomorrow. Otherwise, we're partly sunny and 70 to 75 tomorrow. Sunny and 80 to 85 for Friday. I'm Rob Carrollin with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 99.1.
Bloomberg Radio brings you influential voices on the stories that matter. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon.
I think inflation is not even yet. I'm concerned about that.
Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon.
I don't think that at the moment U.S. trade policy is that uncertain.
Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan.
The number one thing we can do to make America move forward is keep everybody in place.
The names that matter on the news you need. Listen on Bloomberg 99.1 or anytime on the Bloomberg Talks podcast.
They told us to expect change. They warned us about the transition. But honestly, they forgot the best part. This is the chapter where we finally focus on us. LifeMD delivers expert menopause and midlife care right from your home. From hormone health to holistic wellness, LifeMD helps you feel your best for the best years of your life. LifeMD, it's just getting good. Visit lifemd.com/goodlife.
April 29th and 30th, Bloomberg House arrives in Miami at a Formula One Grand Prix. Set against one of the world's most electrifying sporting events, Bloomberg House brings business, investment, and culture together. Powered by Bloomberg Journalism, real-time data, and forward-looking conversations. From onstage discussions to exclusive networking with global leaders, this is where ideas connect. Bloomberg House Miami. Presenting sponsor, Orient. Supporting sponsor, Okta. Learn more at BloombergLive.com/Bloomberg House Miami.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-566-3062. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-566-3062. That's 800-566-3062. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people. You're listening to Bloomberg Intelligence with Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, so from Paul Sweeney live here on our Bloomberg Interactive Bloomberg Studio, streaming live on YouTube. I mean, here's our next guest is the analyst of just crazy big numbers. That's all he does. Coach Ben Nipsey, he runs all the global technology research for Bloomberg Intelligence. We asked him to manage a bunch of people too, and he gets it all done somehow. Here's some just, we've already talked about the space kind of customer risk type of thing here, concentration. Do I have to think about, like, what is the addressable market for space? Do I have to do that exercise?
You can, because right now, given the macro situation, everyone cares about defense, everyone cares about, what's going on in terms of monitoring the risks involved in the airspace. And look, with a name like SpaceX, they clearly have the rocket technology that U.S. government is leaning on, and they're doing it at a cost below the prior attempts that have been made around that technology. So from that perspective, I think what Elon Musk does well is he tries to be that lowest cost provider, whether it's your autonomous car or, in this case, the space technology. And that has worked very well for him,
So, Elon Musk, I got the U.S. government, that's a pretty good customer.
Yeah.
I'd also like to do business with China. Can I do business with China?
Well, that's where I think, as we've seen with EVs, is there are a lot of Chinese EV companies that have opted out, and they're competing on price as well. So from that perspective, given how important this technology is from the standpoint of national security, I would be surprised if they're able to make inroads when it comes to the Chinese market.
But presumably it would be in SpaceX's best interest to diversify its customer base away from the U.S. So would I look at it like I would a defense prime contractor, like a Lockheed Martin type of thing? They're happy to sell jets to Germany, but not so much to China. Would that be a similar type scenario?
I think it's too early to think about that sort of a scenario, but I do agree with your broader point that they would look to sell this to more governments. And we've seen that with a company like Palantir. I mean, this is on the software side, a name that really was skewed towards U.S. government business, counterterrorism and that kind of use cases. And that was able to expand quite rapidly, into some of the commercial use cases as well. So I would be curious when they file their S1, what kind of commercial use cases are they looking at? Because there will be, I think, a few big commercial use cases. It's just we can't imagine what those could be, and to size the market around that would be my priority.
But again, a valuation of 1.75 trillion.
Yeah.
So I guess they're profitable? I mean,
They are, I think, based on the numbers that have been, surfaced, they're close to 50% EBITDA margins. So it is an asset-heavy business,
Yeah.
but so is cloud and data centers these days. So, you can't really differentiate on that.
all right, speaking of cloud, data centers, talk to us about this OpenAI. Again, the numbers for, a guy like me, a simple guy, these are just monstrous numbers in the private market to raise these money. So what is OpenAI? What's the strategy of this capital raise?
I mean, everyone is trying to build as much data center capacity as they can, because the business model is, if you have data center gigawatt capacity, that translates into revenue, whether it's 10 billion or 12 billion. So every gigawatt can be translated into token consumption, which is what translates into real revenue. So everyone is trying to raise as much money as possible. And in this case, out of that 122 billion, 50 billion is coming from Amazon and 30 billion is coming from NVIDIA. So the majority of that raise is coming from, two of your hyperscalers, and that's what's most interesting about this raise.
Is there anybody out there credibly saying the industry's building too fast, there's going to be an overcapacity issue problem?
No, I think right now you still keep hearing we are undersupplied by at least 20-30%, if you apply your rental models, but no, I don't think we have enough of any of these chips.
Anthropic, OpenAI, I don't know this. Are these all U.S. companies? Where's the rest of the world in all this AI stuff?
So Mistral is a European name that is among that top 10 frontier labs. But when it comes to LLMs, it's really US and Chinese LLMs, which are mostly open source. So they have used a different strategy in terms of the US names being more proprietary. Some of them do have an open source model, but for the most part, Anthropic and OpenAI's leading models are all proprietary. And that's why they're raising this kind of money with the hope nothing gets commoditized.
Christmas was celebrated as New Year's Day before the Gregorian calendar changed it to January 1st. Those who didn't get the word about the change were called fools, and people played tricks on them.
The full pink moon rises tonight, though it won't actually appear pink. The name comes from the spring wildflower phlox, not its color. The full moon also helps set the date for Easter, which falls on the first Sunday after the first full moon of spring. For the best view, look to the eastern horizon at sunset when the moon appears largest and hope for no cloud cover. Nike is reviving its vintage moon shoe. The runner was originally created back in 1971 when the company was called Blue Ribbon Sports. Now it's coming back alongside a promotional campaign. The shoes will be out on April 3rd, followed by a release to the web store on May 7th. I'm Chris Garcia.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Despite another successful funding round, OpenAI shares have fallen out of favor on the secondary market, with some investors looking to sell around $600 million of shares, but finding no buyers. Investors are instead showing record demand for Anthropic shares, adding the company's valuation, which is roughly $600 billion, will catch up with OpenAI's while having a better risk-reward profile. Nike shares have fallen more than 13% after the company gave a gloomy outlook for the year ahead, with revenue expected to decline 2 to 4% in the current quarter. Analysts surveyed by Bloomberg have been looking for 2% sales growth this quarter and bigger gains as the year progressed. Oil has fallen in a volatile session as West Texas Intermediate futures crude slid below $100 a barrel, at one point slumping more than 4.8% before recovering some of that loss to trade near $99. Crude prices are still about 40% higher than they were before March. Prices have jumped ever since Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. Dan Schwartzman, Bloomberg Radio.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is Balance of Power with Joe Matthew.
Markets are risk on ahead of the president's speech. Welcome to the Wednesday edition. As President Trump prepares to address the nation in prime time this evening, stocks continuing to rally on hopes for an end to the war with Iran. We're going to cover the markets this hour with Bloomberg's Eric Weiner, and we'll get the latest from the administration when we talk to our political panel. Donald Trump today also becoming the first president to attend arguments at the Supreme Court as the High Court considers the constitutionality of his bid to limit birthright citizenship. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall is at the court and will join us live in just a moment. But we start with the markets and the continuation of a powerful rally yesterday. Charlie Pellet has the latest from World Headquarters in New York. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Joe Matthew. We are looking at an update, perhaps putting it mildly. Best level of the day right now for the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ Composite Index. S&P right now up 76, gain there of 1.2%. As you correctly point out, optimism growing that the war in the Middle East may be nearing a conclusion. Oil pulling back. A barrel of West Texas Intermediate crude, 99.85 right now, down 1.5%. Barrel of Brent, 1
We're seeing blowhorns, also, of course, signs. This one passing right now, families belong together, really taking aim at the administration's policies. I'm not going to have our camera operator turn all the way around, but if you did, you could see, of course, in the backdrop, the Capitol Rotunda, because President Trump being here today is really doubling down on the administration's immigration policies and hardline stance. But keep in mind, the Department of Homeland Security, Joe, of course, is currently shut down over disagreements about those policies. But if we go back to the crux of what we heard at oral arguments today, President Trump left after John Sauer, the U.S. Solicitor General, wrapped up his remarks, and we started to see some of that skepticism. It wasn't all skepticism. There was some inklings of sympathy, for example, from Samuel Alito, as one example, saying that the administration was probably right that when the 14th Amendment was ratified, the drafters were not thinking about undocumented immigration. But here is one of those key quotes from the U.S. Chief Justice John Roberts, telling the Solicitor General when it comes to that argument, quote, "It's a new world, but it's the same Constitution." And that's really what it's ultimately probably going to come down to, as we've been reiterating. Bloomberg News has seen enough. It appears the justices are skeptical of the Trump administration's argument on birthright citizenship.
Yeah, that's the money line for the Chief Justice. You put your finger on it, Tyler. We're going to hear that for the rest of the day here. To be clear, this would impact an estimated 250,000 children born to undocumented immigrants and temporary visitors each year. Democrats take it further. They say this plan would strip millions of current Americans from their citizenship. Tyler, I know that you're juggling a lot out in front of the court right now, but you cover the White House, and we need to ask you about the president's address this evening, knowing that there is a lot of news and a lot of questions still involving the war with Iran. We just saw a headline across the terminal before you joined us that Iran says President Trump's claim that Iran requested a ceasefire is false. This is Iranian TV citing foreign ministry spokesman on a ceasefire. President spoke yesterday about his objectives, his goal, well, singular goal in this case at the White House. Listen to what he said.
I have one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job. And I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job. But we want to knock out every single thing they have. Now, it's possible that we'll make a deal before that.
So, Tyler, what do we expect to hear from the president tonight? Is it even possible to anticipate what his message will be? Could it be one of withdrawal? Could it be one of invasion, or something in between?
You're probably putting your finger on it exactly. Joe, at this point, your guess is as good as mine. Of course, we've heard from the administration. This is going to be an update on Iran, and we can take some clues from what we've already heard from President Trump in the last 24 hours, really putting the pressure on allies when it comes to the conflict in Iran, in particular, the Strait of Hormuz. That is what we're going to be watching for. Developments there, whether that means escalation or potential de-escalation, and how that involves our allies. Yesterday, the president calling on allies to go in and take the energy supplies from the Strait, and this morning in an interview published with the Telegraph, threatening that the U.S. could withdraw from NATO. And I would say it's significant to pair those comments with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, overnight, saying that it is time to re-examine that alliance. So I would expect that regardless of what the president says tonight, he very likely will have some harsh words for our allies as we wait to see how this timeline is going to evolve. As you all know, yesterday the President Trump saying that he expects the war to last 2 to 3 more weeks, also saying that he doesn't need an agreement necessarily to be in place in order to suspend U.S. military operations in Iran. Today saying, though, that he needs to see the Strait of Hormuz open if there's going to be a potential ceasefire. So we're trying to put our finger on exactly what the White House needs to see in order for there to be an end to the conflict, and perhaps we'll get some further clues later tonight.
All right, Tyler, thank you so much. Run for cover. I can't imagine what this sounds like on the radio. Tyler Kendall at a very active Supreme Court on a beautiful day in Washington. I know they're screaming, but it's 82 degrees and sunny out. Wow, my blood pressure went up listening to that. That was insane. Thank you, Tyler. Can we make sure that Tyler and Wiley are safe in front of the court? They're screaming on the top of their lungs. Okay, let's take a breath now. We have to get ready for the long haul. Again, the president's going to be speaking at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Very curious to see what the venue will be. Typically, at least in prior administrations, this would be an Oval Office address, right? From behind the resolute desk. The president tends not to prefer that setting unless he's in a room full. And God knows we have a lot of those conversations that we bring you into Matthew here on Balance of Power. The prime time addresses have tended to be more East Room, Cross Hall, we'll see, diplomatic reception room. We'll have to find out. They're expecting that he will speak for about 20 minutes, so this will invade primetime entertainment here for potentially millions of Americans. It is also, according to many, overdue, so we could have some very large viewership this evening once the president speaks. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. We're just getting started here. I mentioned Artemis. For the first time since the Apollo era, the United States of America is going back to the moon. This is going to be a great story today. The window for launch opens right before the president starts speaking, and we're going to bring you to Florida. Cape Canaveral with Bloomberg's Ed Ludlow straight ahead on Bloomberg. Make sure to subscribe to the Balance of Power podcast, especially on a big day like this one. Get to Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast to find us. Watch us live on YouTube. Listen anytime at Bloomberg.com. Friday, we zero in on March jobs.
How much weakness actually is in the labor market?
It's a special Good Friday edition of Bloomberg Surveillance.
Unemployment rate coming in at 4.4%.
The markets will be closed. We're live with the jobs report, plus reaction and analysis.
You have an oil price shock, but you also potentially have an AI shock.
The March jobs report on Bloomberg Surveillance. That is a stunning number. Friday morning at 8:30 on Bloomberg 99.1, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app.
With the Bloomberg Small Business Report, I'm John Tucker. J.P. Morgan Chase, the biggest U.S. bank, has announced another new program with the latest venture aimed at expanding economic opportunity in local communities across the country. The American Dream Initiative, as the bank is calling it, will span 6 focus areas, and that includes small businesses, where the effort will focus initially. With small business banking, J.P. Morgan aims to grow its roster of clients to 10 million over several years, up from about 7 million now. The bank's going to get there by lending more to those types of firms, 80 billion over 10 years, as well as hiring 1,000 small business bankers. The bank also expects to announce more measures across each of the focus areas in the months and years ahead, including advocating for policies at the local level. CEO Jamie Dimon has run the firm for more than 20 years, has repeatedly written about the fraying American dream in his annual shareholder letters in recent years. And it's the Bloomberg Small Business Report.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So, then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 99.1.
Clouds that move in with some showers and thunderstorms at times today. District of Baltimore, very warm for the first day of April, only 85 to 90. Tonight, scattered showers. There could be a thunderstorm at 60 to 65 overnight. Turning partly sunny, cooler tomorrow with the chance of late day showers, 70 to 75. Showers and storms end tomorrow night. Sunny, 80 to 85 Friday. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 99.1.
The news doesn't stop on the weekends, and now neither do we. This is Lisa Mateo. Join us on Bloomberg this weekend. Watch and listen to the new show Saturdays and Sundays starting at 7 a.m. on Bloomberg Radio, TV, and the Bloomberg Business app.
It's 12:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. We've got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all advancing as optimism grows. The war in the Middle East may be nearing a conclusion. The president will be speaking tonight, 9 o'clock Wall Street time. We'll have it for you live here on Bloomberg. S&P right now at 6,600, up 72, up 1.1% after yesterday's events. The Dow up almost 400 points now, up 0.9%. NASDAQ up 1.7%. This as the VIX moves lower below 24. Oil also retreating. The 10-year 4.30%, the 2-year 3.79. The contract rate on the 30-year now at 6.57%. That rate, by the way, has surged nearly half a percentage point in the last 4 weeks. That is the biggest advance since 2024. Among real estate stocks, Zillow Group down 1.2%. Compass, the broker, up by 0.5%. And among home builders, Toll up 0.4%. Lennar down 0.4%. Pulte Home, little change there, up by just about 2 cents. SpaceX, major story today, filing confidentially for an IPO, bringing the company closer to delivering its biggest or the biggest ever listing. Recapping, S&P up 1.1%, West Texas Intermediate crude just above $100 a barrel. That, Joe Matthew, it's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Sounds good, Charlie. Thank you. We'll try to keep this up and get Charlie Pellet back in the mix here in about 20 minutes as we keep tabs on Wall Street. Good Wednesday. Thank you for joining us here on Bloomberg Radio, live on YouTube here on Balance of Power with our eyes on the president's schedule today. He's got a long one, and so we all do as well. He started his day at the Supreme Court, as we have already established with Tyler Kendall. I'm still recovering from that whole conversation. Now he's back at the White House, and we might hear from him in a moment. They're assembling the press pool here because the president's about to sit down for an Easter lunch. That's also on the schedule for today. I don't have the menu yet, but he might be revved up enough after visiting the court to actually bring reporters in for some questions. If that's the case, you know that we'll follow them with our cameras and microphones here at Bloomberg, because when he speaks in prime time this evening, that's the end of the day for him, 9 p.m. Eastern time. He might not have the opportunity to get into birthright citizenship. He's going to be talking about Iran this evening. So if he does welcome us to Easter lunch in the East Room, we'll take you there. This is also my way of saying that he's not at the Kennedy Space Center. Big stuff going on this evening here, and it's actually really exciting when we talk about so much controversial and in many ways depressing politics here. Something amazing is about to happen today. America is going back to the moon. Artemis 2, it's finally here. And as we add another position on the clock, 6:24 p.m., that's when the window opens here. So this could have already happened, like to think that it will, before the president ever speaks here. NASA's first manned mission to the moon since the Apollo era, since the early 1970s. They're not going to be walking on the moon. They're slingshotting around it. All this leading up to a crewed moon landing in 2028. We heard from Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, of course, Democrat, and NASA astronaut, speaking with reporters on the ground at Cape Canaveral. Listen.
This is inspiring, and it's exciting, and it's something that we can only really do in this country. Yeah, the Russians, they go up to the space station. They've never landed, somebody on the moon. I hope we get there before the Chinese. That's the goal right now. But also do it in a different way, where we're gonna have like a permanent presence on the surface of the moon, like we do in low Earth orbit.
Ed Ludlow is going to have a permanent presence for some time here at Cape Canaveral. The co-host of Bloomberg Tech on Bloomberg TV and radio is with us right now with the countdown clock behind him. I love all of this, Ed. It's incredibly exciting. You don't have to be a space geek like we are to appreciate the importance of the moment. Give us the tick-tock on how this is going to work today once the window opens.
Yeah, the crew woke up at about 9:45 a.m. Eastern time, had breakfast, went about their preparations, and at 7:34 a.m. Eastern this morning, they started loading the propellant. The fuel for the SLS system is hydrogen with oxygen as a oxidizer and an accelerant, and that is an important point because, as you quite rightly noted, the Artemis program broadly is behind schedule in a matter of years and over budget by many billions. And so where they've had issues is with that propellant and tanking and loading, and right through 1 p.m. Eastern, if that fueling process goes off without a hitch, all of the other factors that we look at about whether we're going to go at that window opening at 6:24 p.m. Eastern time, all of those other factors look good right now. There is never certainty when it comes to space launch, let alone human space flight, but that's what we're gearing towards at 6:24 p.m. Eastern today.
So 1 p.m., we're going to have a pretty good sense then, I guess, of the next stop on the road here, Ed. That's really interesting, and my God, the weather's amazing down there. You've got 73 degrees. It looks like mostly sunny. I'm guessing the weather is not going to be a challenge. How long, if they take off tonight, will it take them to get to the moon?
So it's a complicated path. The mission is over the course of 10 days. It takes about 8 minutes or so to get to low Earth orbit. But then what happens essentially is a series of maneuvers where the mission's pilot will manually take control of Orion to prove that it can be piloted manually, putting it into close proximity with the launch system. That's kind of a test that happens early. Then it's a 2-day elliptical orbit of the Earth to gather momentum and kinetic energy, to then slingshot it the 250,000 miles or so towards the far side of the moon. In that period of time, they'll be testing